Hey everybody, welcome to week 7 of the Hearthstone Legendary Series. My name is Frode, and today I'm not joined by TJ Azumo, I'm joined by Reynad, who drove all the way from Huntington Beach to join me. TJ is filling in for League of Legends cast that's going on with the EPS. Reynad, I'm glad to have you. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm good. Thanks for having me. Should be fun. Always a good time to cast. I'm excited to see some games from some players I haven't heard of before. So
That's right. Well, I mean, just for today. Tomorrow is the main event. That's what these guys are playing for. We have 8 players today playing for 2 spots, just like we've been having every single week. They're going to have 2 spots for the main event that happens tomorrow. And remember, this is week 7. We have 8 weeks of regular season play. We'll have one winner directly going to the finals. We have 2 players already decided, Dark Wanix, Magic Amy. And today we're going to find out who amongst these field of 8 will get closer. Now, taking a look at the brackets, do you recognize any of these names at all?
I think I ended up playing against Ping Ping Ho in the week that I played early on in the Legendary Series, and that's the only name out of these that I recognize.
Yeah, well, actually, I recognize Ant. Ant is top 16 America's BlizzCon finalist.
Okay.
I believe I think he was the guy who should have beat StrifeGrow for second place in the group. And then, consequently, like, there was a priest versus priest mirror that I thought was not going to be losable, and then all of a sudden, there was like a series of decisions where Ant played too safe and gave StrifeGrow the win, and then StrifeGrow went on to, of course, place top 8 at BlizzCon. We have some other interesting guys like King Riaz, Phone Tap, Shadow Exorcist, Pharo, and Rod. And a few of these guys are from Taiwan. I mean, these Taiwanese players are fierce. They qualify every single week. And it's starting to scare some of us here because we realize, well, for one thing, we don't know much about these guys, but another thing, our travel budget is kind of limited. So it's like having 3 or 4 players from Taiwan qualify is definitely something that we're scared of. But if you guys want a chance to qualify, you can too. It's not limited to just these players who are pro or semi-pro or whatever they call themselves. You too can also sign up if you just go to esl.gg/legendary series. You can get all kinds of information regarding our weekly cups. It's at Sunday at 3 p.m. Pacific, and if you get to the top 8, you'll also be on this show. While you're on the website, check out our cool promotions that are going on with our products like Crucial, Western Digital, Plantronics, Cooler Master, and you can all check out through that link below, or just check out the new cool Plantronics rig headset. That would be great for all your gaming needs. So with that, let's go to our first series of the day. Andre, sorry if you're feeling a little bored from my homework, but we want to definitely keep the lights on here. We have Shadow Exorcist versus Pharo to begin the day. Now, we don't know anything about these guys at all, but I'm pretty sure that they're going to be bringing Warlock. How do you feel about
Yeah, that's
that?
what I was gonna say. we know a little bit. We know they're bringing Warlock. That's about it. Hard to say whether it's Zoo or Handlock, but yeah, I mean, the metagame's pretty open right now. A good amount of balance if we ignore Warlock. Oh wow, 2 Druid decks. That's ambitious. We'll see.
2 Druid decks?
From Pharo.
You're looking at bottom right. I was looking at the middle column.
No. But yeah, Pharaoh's not bringing Warlock, so I got to give the edge to Shadow here for sure. We'll see how it goes, of course. But yeah, the metagame is mostly balanced aside from Warlock. You can kind of play pretty much any class, I'd say, aside from Priest or Shaman is viable.
Yeah.
And yeah, we can definitely see some.
It does feel like those 2 classes are pretty weak right now, even though some players bring Shaman still to this format. Why is that, do you feel like?
Basically, it's because they're very reactive. They have a lot of reactive cards, a lot of removal, a lot of cards like Shadow Madness and Cabal Shadow Priest that need very specific board states to get good value. So what that means is, since you're not the one putting pressure on your opponent, you can only play the right mix of reactive cards to beat either aggro or control. You can't really beat both, so you have to pick one or the other. Whereas a deck like Zoo doesn't really care what your opponent's playing. Flame Imp's going to deal 3 damage either way, so.
Either to yourself and nothing, or I guess to your opponent every turn. Well, it's not going to be Zoo to start things off. We have Handlock versus Warrior. Now, Andre, I've casted a lot of this matchup, so hopefully you can introduce some fresh concepts and ideas and things I haven't seen yet.
Yeah, this is a matchup people always think they're favored. Like, for example, if you're a Handlock player, you think you're favored. If you're a Warrior player, you think you're favored.
Right.
It's definitely a matchup that I think is very skill intensive. The better player will usually win, although deck building plays a big role, of course. If the Warrior has 2 big game hunters, he's going to have a very easy time. Right off the bat, we see that Shadow here is playing Mortal Coil and Dark Bomb, so a lot of reactive cards in his deck. That's going to be good for Pharo because basically you want a more threat-heavy handlock deck in order to be favored against Warrior. Even playing things like Sunwalker, Cairn, just more dudes is going to give you an edge. But yeah, big game Hunter in the opening hand right off the bat. Execute. It's exactly what you want if you're the Warrior here.
Is it important at all to have Harrison Jones? Because I know people have also said that that's a great way to not only disarm Jiraxis, but to climb up in the card count once you dispose of all of your removals they usually get.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely can play a role in the handlock matchup. Harrison is the reason, for example, that I stopped playing Jiraxis about 3 months ago. Once Warriors sort of picked back up in popularity because of players like Sho. Because that interaction seems like such a niche scenario, but it's really not. Like almost every game it'll come up if you play Jiraxis. So yeah, because of that I feel like, well, for some reason most people still do play Jiraxis. So you know, if we do see Shadow have that in his deck, the Harrison's going to be able to answer it. But you can also hold off on Jiraxis, right? You can hold off on it, play it like really late in the game when you're almost at fatigue, and at that point, oh jeez.
Yeah. Well, okay, sorry. Finish your thought before we talk about this card.
Yeah, at that point, Warrior can't afford to draw 8 cards or they'll kill themselves.
Right.
But yeah, Iron Juggernaut, huh?
Yeah. This card is really fascinating to me because it was one of the most hyped cards coming into Goblins versus Gnomes, but it felt very lackluster, especially compared to Shield Maiden, which took up the same spot, and it felt like it had such a higher impact. Iron Juggernaut, what are your thoughts here, Andre?
My thoughts are that the card's garbage, but it's pretty good against Handlock, that's for sure. I mean, Handlock's going to be life tapping. At some point, it's going to be put to 5 life because of that card. But maybe that would enable a really good Molten Giant.
Yeah. I mean, but what if it's the next card and you end up dropping him to like a turn 5 Molten Giant, you know?
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, yeah, Juggernaut's definitely... This is a very, like, anti-control Warrior list. This deck could get stomped by Zoo. I mean, we see Harrison, Big Game Hunter, Iron Juggernaut, just a bunch of cards that are basically blanks against aggro.
Right.
So it was very fortunate for Pharo that he got paired against Handlock. It's a matchup that, because of the way he built his deck, should be very easy for him. So we'll see if that ends up being the case, because you don't want to lose to Handlock with your BGH Iron Juggernaut Warrior deck, that's for sure.
Well, let's see if this ever comes into play. I've actually yet to see Iron Juggernaut explode in a pro match. Or any kind of broadcast match. Because I think it's still a little bit gray area to call these guys pros, because they still have yet to make a name for themselves. Or maybe they are from their respective regions and I'm just being ignorant.
Yeah, I have no idea, man. It's Hearthstone.
Everyone's a pro?
Everyone's a pro.
I knew that.
Everyone's a casual.
Well, Mountain Giant at the top is pretty nice to get. How do you follow this up? Taunt up the Ancient Watcher?
Yeah, that's what I would do. I mean, as the handlock, you pretty much just want to life tap as much as possible.
Right.
Any chance that you get to. One mistake that I saw in almost every match that people played handlock in the ESL series I watched last week is very few players coin life tapped, even against Warrior, which isn't absolutely, was like, and they lost games because of it, which it didn't seem like a big deal, but it's a very snowball-y mistake to make. It didn't come up this game because I think the Warrior had the coin, but that's just a case where like you want to life tap as much as possible, get through your deck as much as you can.
It's just that instance of an extra card giving you more options, and
Yeah,
as a result
exactly.
might lead to the better play, right?
Every turn you pass up on life tapping, it means that every single turn for the rest of the game, you have one less option. You're one card less deep in your deck. So, and a lot of times the Shadow Flame is just one card away. It's just game. It's the difference of winning or losing, basically. Burning a Shield Slam on an Ancient Watcher, that is not what you want to do. You want to save those for the threats.
Right. Well, especially if it looks like Hellfire will be able to easily clear this board.
I definitely think that's what we're going to see.
Yeah.
Might as well tap first, but not a big deal.
Was his hand full? No, it was 8 cards.
Yeah, see, this is what I mean. Just missed out on a card. Shouldn't.
Oh, wow.
I mean, he's afraid of Grommash Taskmaster, but that's, 3 turns away. Warrior only has 7
Well, I guess Grommash Inner Rage, that would be the soonest he can come out, but he's at 7 mana. I guess he couldn't do that at all.
Yeah, I would have tapped there.
Mildly disappointing, at least if you're trying to dig for the right answers here.
Look at just the amount of reactive cards. Antique Healbot, Double Dark Bomb, Coils, Owls. I mean, there's going to be a lot of turns with this kind of handlock list where You just don't have a threat to play. And unfortunately, no Siphon Soul here for Shadow. One of the cleaner ways to deal with Sylvanas. But hey, maybe that was a card down, and he would have had it if he tapped last turn. We'll see. You kind of want a Sun Fury, but you kind of don't. Because if you Sun Fury, it gets stolen. If you don't, he gets to attack face potentially, which could definitely...
Right, it could lead to you dying. Not to mention that Sun Fury is your last taunt. So, Lotheb, but does he end up putting down the Sun Fury Protector?
Looks like it. It's very good for the warrior here. Guaranteed Sylvanas value. You just take that, I think. I mean, you could Despite the Lotheb, Taskmaster it, and then kill the Sun Fury. But I think I would just guarantee the steal on the 2/3 here.
Do you follow with Ragnaros? Because it's just a pretty easy board. Or do you think that's too risky? Because I mean, wouldn't he have Siphon sold the Alex? Or sorry, the Sylvanas here.
Yeah, well, he could have Big Game Hunter.
That's true.
I would play the Ragnaros. You usually want to get them down to Molten Giant range on a turn where you can answer with the Molten Giant. So like when you have Brawl in hand, that's a good time to get them low. In this case, Pharo doesn't have Brawl, but he has Execute. There's a good chance the Ragnaros ends up living. I would play it. He's going to go with that.
Okay, well, how is Shadow going to respond to this? He doesn't have a clean way to deal with Ragnaros. Oh, speak of the devil. He might have Big Game Hunter. Well, he did draw it. And again, one of these instances where it's very scary because you might just die at any second here.
He is out of taunts. This is going to be some scary couple of turns here. I'm a big fan of just Despite Face.
Yeah.
This is going to bait the Jiraxis, and then the Harrison will just win the game.
Well, there's really nothing that Shadow can do here then. It's almost mapped out for him because he's going to die unless he has a Taunt Giver.
Yeah, well, he can heal bot plus.
Does Healbot save him, though? I guess if he kills off the first body of the Sludge Belcher, right? Well, oh no, it'll be 9 damage from the Warrior because of the Cool Taskmaster plus the Death Spite. I was for a second thinking that Death Spite could Whirlwind kill, so that'll actually keep him surviving just by a little bit. It's by the skin of his teeth.
Yeah, I mean, you could Healbot, Owl, Dark Bomb, kill the Belcher. There's a lot of options here. They all involve the Warrior winning a couple turns from now, but we'll see what he ends up going with. Alright, Siphon, I like it. Not a bad one at all.
Yeah, but Warrior's still on a draw to win the game. Not to mention that bomb is still looming, Andre.
That's right.
The bomb is going to happen. Alright, well, have to imagine that Pharo wants to draw for something better right now. Shield block, see if he can pick up other ways to add that one little damage. But I don't think there anything is right now.
No, I think you gotta go face here. Taskmaster the 4/1. Armor up and
second Death Spite?
He might consider just throwing down Harrison, but I hope he doesn't here. There's no way he would actually. You gotta expect Jiraxis. One great thing about cutting Jiraxis is that they never play their Harrison.
Yeah, so it's like a dead card, right? Well, they end up playing if it goes to the fatigue stage and they have like 3 cards left.
Yeah.
In which case, they could have used that as a 5-mana drop instead of armoring up and passing. Uh-oh, Jiraxis is coming out, and Pharo's going to have a very clean full hand here.
That's
just
game,
a second.
boys. It's it's tough to come back from an 8/1. That's for sure.
That belongs in a museum.
I mean, is he even for 1? Harris doesn't even die. He's also still a threat to do damage.
8/1. It'd only be a 7/1 otherwise.
Oh, okay. I guess you gave that addition there. Just to look at this hand. Oh, Sludge Belcher immediately dropped down too. I think there's nothing really in the deck remaining. I really hope Iron Juggernaut Mind gets drawn right here. Well, I think that's it.
Well, yeah, that's that's why you don't play Jiraxis.
Well, okay, so his opponent has 4 damage plus the 8 here, so that's 12. Will he survive? Oh no, there's Gromosh in hand. Never mind. Okay, he's dead no matter what then.
Yep. Yeah, imagine if that was an Alexstrasza instead, though. Go up to 15, you have an 8-8. All of a sudden, Pharo would have had to attack the Alexstrasza, execute it. All of a sudden, you're at 15, you got time to play Dr. Boom.
Well, that's assuming your opponent didn't have Gromosh right now, because his Gromosh range is 14.
He wouldn't have had Gromosh, because he wouldn't have drawn any
Oh,
cards.
instead of the Jiraxis.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a good point. Is that why you personally like Alexstrasza much better?
Yeah, well, I don't play either one now. I don't think a 9-drop's important. But if you're going to play one card to put you at 15, I think Alexstrasza is the better of the two.
Sure, sounds good to me. Well, that's going to wrap up game 1, and that was much quicker than I anticipated, considering that this matchup can be super grindy, and often comes down to the war of attrition. So that wraps it up, and, well, I don't know. Like, I kind of agree with a lot what you were saying, how it felt like Shadow wasn't necessarily making some of the fundamental decisions correctly.
He played fine aside from the one missed life tap, honestly. The big issue there was the way the decks were built was so stacked in favor of the Warrior, it was just going to be an uphill battle. I mean, he even had the opening hand, Big Game Hunter, that execute. It's almost like he wasn't even mulliganing for Zoo, you know? So
I guess if he knew he was handlock.
Yeah, so definitely just a straightforward win for Warrior, and I think he was favored going into it because of the way they were built. So nothing too unexpected there.
Sure. Taking a look at the matchups, see what's coming up next. We have Mage versus Rogue, and that'll of course be followed by Druid versus Warrior. And if Pharo is able to stabilize in this matchup, he has a pretty good chance of 3-0ing his opponent, because Druid versus Warrior is really tough, even if Warrior's expecting the Druid here. So then, what kind of Mage are you expecting here from Shadow, do you think? Like, what Mage is the most popular, in your opinion?
I would say Mech Mage, especially for tournament plays, one of the better ones, but it's really tough to say. Mage is one of those classes that there's so many ways to build it. Some people play Freeze Mage, some people play Mech Mage. Some people go with Control Mage that we've seen, duplicates, scientists, that kind of stuff. So impossible to really say, but if I were going in a tournament, I would play Mech Mage most likely. But I would pair that up with Zoo, you know, most times. So.
Right. And I think the Tempo Rogue is also starting to gain a lot in popularity. We saw Hype play it last week. Mech Rogue is still something that's still new and experimented with. It can be powerful, but
I've been playing that a lot on stream this week.
I'm not that big a fan of it personally.
You need to embrace the target dummy, man. Let it into your heart. Turn 3 target dummy Iron Sensei.
Iron Sensei is pretty sick, though. I gotta admit, if you can protect that thing,
it's all about target dummy, man. Turn 3 SI on the play.
I could accept Shield Bearer, Andre. I can't accept target dummy. I'm sorry. Oh man, Snow Chugger against a weapon class, especially one like Rogue.
So it is gonna be a control Rogue. Violet Teacher, removal, and friends. Snow Chugger, definitely one of the more annoying cards to deal with, though, out of the Mage deck. This is a matchup I would actually put in Mage's favor quite heavily, because especially with a curve like this, you got the 1, 2, 3. The important thing here is that Mage is constantly going to be outputting damage. There's some risk in just freezing out the Rogue, so you can't use your hero power anymore, which is definitely a problem for them. But even if that doesn't happen, in order for Rogue to win, the game's going to have to go on very long. You're going to have to finish it off with like a Dr. Boom or something like that. You're just giving Mage so much time to draw all their burn spells. So, because Mage is the aggressor here and they play Fireball, they play Frostbolt, some of them play Ice Lance, it's just going to get enough time to draw into lethal burn, I think. I like killing the Snow Chugger here. You definitely have to do it one way or another, because you need to stop the Tinkertown from working on turn 3 if possible.
Right.
And as Shadow here, I like just playing it out for sure.
Well, he doesn't have anything next turn, and that gives Pharo some breathing room here, as he does have an SI7 enabler too. And it's important that he makes sure to minimize as much damage, like you said, so that way those burn spells, they're not going to be the ones closing the gap. Especially with, there's a lot of ways to pair damage as the board starts stacking up with the Mechanical Yetis, with the Goblin Blast Mages, etc.
Shadow picks up a Spider Tank. Now he's got to make the choice. Do I Frostbolt this? Do I play Spider Tank? That is a tough call.
Yeah, if you play the Frostbolt, you actually pump up your Mana Worm a little bit.
Yeah, it does help out. I think you have to do it just so you don't lose your worm for free. But that does mean the spider tank's not coming out for several turns, most likely.
Yeah, Azure Drake's a lot better just in the next couple of turns, too.
Alright, should be a teacher. The question is, do you attack the worm, or do you save that charge for the Blade Flurry that he has in hand? You definitely telegraph Blade Flurry by not attacking it, so I think you do have to make it. Yeah. This is the thing with Big Game Hunter. I'm a fan of the second Sabotage instead of BGH. For situations like this, it's a little bit more flexible.
Well,
That's a great draw.
yeah, the Farseer is pretty important too, just because you want to get those heals.
Well, no, this turn you're gonna heal your teacher. That's why it's good, because it's your only way of killing Azure Drake. So you don't want to leave teacher as a 3-1 by
Yeah.
doing this. It's a very, very important draw here. It's gonna let Rogue keep 2 creatures in play, even though he is at a low life total. He actually has the board, which is very rare. Wow, that Gnome's gonna enable Blast Mage if he wants it this turn. I would probably just play Drake, I think.
Blast Mage feels like it could easily just not do anything,
Yeah.
especially if it hits 2 to the face and doesn't even leave minions pretty weak. This Azure Drake also seemed pretty problematic. Not to mention you've also got some damage.
Yeah, I definitely like this play better here. Oh, wow. Alright, there it is. Boom. That's important. It's going to give him a solid turn 7 play. He can preparation the sprint if he wants.
You think he can survive without taking enough damage?
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. I mean, there's not much he can do this turn besides sprint, so we'll see if that gets him a second Farseer, maybe an Antique Healbot if he plays that.
Ooh, Eviscerates.
Those are great.
Yeah. Oh, he plays Van Cleef in this deck too. That's pretty cool. I've always wondered like if Van Cleef could fit in this deck, but some people choose not to run him. I think he's pretty decent.
Yeah, definitely solid. Alright, so he's going to try to preserve the life total. I like that play. Get in there for 3 with Farseer and pass back. And all of a sudden, it looks pretty good for Rogue in a matchup that usually favors Mage pretty heavily.
Yeah, it's got also a second Farseer, so that negates some of the burn, half a Fireball or another Frostbolt. That can extend the game a little bit longer for cards like Dr. Boom to seal it, or even the Violet Teacher, because that's still a lot of damage going the opposite way.
Ooh. That
Alright.
Corpor's big.
Yeah, so
Let's see, play all the mechs.
you could play the Mech Warper, which enables the Spider Tank and Pilot Shredder for 5 mana.
Is that as good as Blast Maging, though? I would probably do it. Just play all the mechs.
What to do? What to do?
Yeah. Blast Mage, though, is pretty nice if it can just get rid of all these pesky 1/1s or even kill Violet Teacher, but I think it's too unreliable.
Job's done.
I was going for it. I mean,
Alright.
that was like a Fan of Knives almost.
Yeah, it's one of the better outcomes.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that was a better play.
Well, if it turned out the way it did, I suppose.
Yeah.
If some of those 1/1s survived, it could have been pretty disastrous. Because now the Goblin Blast Mage can't get taken out very easily with just while playing Dr. Boom. He has to make some sacrifices.
I'm ready to leave.
Yeah, I think we're going to see Eviscerate Van Cleef here.
Yeah, just making sure to get the Suicune Swing down so he can get an extra 1/1 and then drop a Van Cleef for 6/6. This is really good too because now he's starting to sneak in damage and grab control of the board again. And the one thing that this Mage deck rather, does struggle with is getting the back of the control of the board if they lose it really quickly.
Oh man, Dr. Boom picked up. That's going to give that Big Game Hunter in Pharaoh's hand a target. And all of a sudden, yeah, that's a draw that could have gotten him back into it, but yeah, the
Oh,
BGH. Oh, jeez.
I mean, looks like he's got pretty much every tool at his disposal. He's got some ways to clear this pretty easily. He's got some heals. He's also got ways to draw too to refill his hand because his rogue deck often does dispose a lot of their cards.
Yep, he's trying to attack his minions first in case they get killed by boom bots. Fan of Knives before BGH because he doesn't want the 4/2 to get killed.
Alright, I think Pharo's got this. Doesn't look like Mage will be able to do anything from this point on. He's on his last draw. Shadow looks pretty much dead. I don't think there's anything. I don't even know if, like, I don't even think he'd live past a Flame Strike, even if he drew that.
Defensive fireball time, that's how you know the mech deck's lost. Yeah, at this point, I think you almost have to hero power too. It's just absolutely brutal. Yeah, you're gonna see Mech Warper come down. I guess you save the Rusty Horn.
I guess if you're just worried about dying, he's already used both Eviscerates. Deadly Poison. I mean, at this point, it's just survival mode for Mage. 5, 6 damage right now.
Yeah, Rogue's got a sprint, a Farseer.
I mean, Dr. Boom is just pretty much the seal, the nail in the coffin here.
That's the only play for sure. I think, would you backstab or use the sap? I'd probably backstab.
Yeah. I mean,
it's close either way. Is he
backstabbing his own Boombot?
Is there a chance of lethal here? I don't...
Oh, man. No, but it was very close.
It's just to send a message, I think.
Yeah, I think it's to stylize.
Well,
Hero power.
I was really confused for a second, like as if he was almost going to lethal him.
That's it. Well, at least the rocket went off, yeah.
For one guy, it did. Another one, gravity is still a very real thing. And that means Shadow is going to go into Game 3 with the 0-2 deficit, and Druid is going to be going up against the Warrior, which I'm ready to lean over to Pharo, which means we could start out the day with a very quick 3-0 here.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't expect that matchup to go that way, especially with a decent draw from the Mage deck. But yeah, Warrior had the right, or Rogue had the right answers, had the coin. Yeah, this matchup though, heavily in favor of Druid. I've played a lot of Druid versus Warrior from the Warrior side, and yeah, I've almost never won. The matchup feels like 90-10 or something. I just don't. So many things have to go right.
It's just the fact that Druid can still kill you even if having a bad start sometimes, where like you can get a really good clean start with armoring up, controlling the board, and all of a sudden they just start getting out of control because you start taking damage to trade with Spectral Knight, and or like if they have anything like a Shade Next Rams that's growing and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and then Druid just has the combo and you die. So it feels very difficult for Warrior to close out the game no matter how good of a lead they get early on. We've seen some ridiculous things too where like I think 1 week, Andre, we had a Warrior player at 29 health and he still died just in one turn to a combo because it did 30 damage on the dot. So it's just like, and the game went like so perfect for the Warrior for turns 1 through 6 too. And all of a sudden it just got way too crazy. So
yeah, it's just so tough to deal with the minions too, and most of your removals in the form of weapons, so you end up attacking Spectral Knights and stuff, and it's brutal. You end up getting below 14 so quickly.
Alright, well this is not what Shadow wanted to see, but maybe Druid can be off to such a slow start, but not with an Innervate in hand.
Yeah,
That
see,
just
the thing I don't like here that Pharo did, he put back the Ancient Allure. I like keeping that card against Warrior, because the games that Warrior can win are when you just never see that card, right? You just run out of cards really quickly.
Right, you're just trying to get one thread at a time and you're not filling out your curve.
Yeah. But, you know, to be fair, this might give him just an absolutely ridiculous opening. If you know, maybe he is more of a mech-oriented Druid deck.
No, that's a good point. What was the other card other than Ancient of Lore?
I forgot already. I want to say Wrath, maybe. Or no, Swipe. Something like that. Alright, gonna be a turn 3 Spectral Knight. Thing of nightmares for Warrior. Hopefully these guys don't have a connection issue or anything. Seems like Mulligan's kind of got stopped there for a bit.
Yeah, seemed to be a little slow on that end.
You know, as far as hands go for the Warrior, though, that's what you want. You want your Armor Smith, you want Acolyte. You want to draw your minions rather than your removal, because then you can hopefully just get something on the board, and Druid has to like commit resources dealing with that. They can't just let you have Armor Smith all game.
Was it Kit Kat who was saying that he doesn't really like Armor Smith against Druid at all? Because I think he was saying like, because I remember there was a discussion and he was saying like, whether or not to keep Armor Smith in certain matchups, and I thought against Druid specifically, he was like, yeah, it's not really worth keeping.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I disagree with him on that. I would keep it against.
Or
Druid
maybe
for
I'm
sure.
remembering the card. Maybe it was backwards, where it's like Druid's the only matchup that you want to keep it. Either way.
Yeah, I think it's probably more of what it was. Druid and Hunter is where you want to keep it. But yeah, he ends up seeing lore, so Druid's not going to run out of cards this game. Turn 3 Spectral Knight is just such a beast. So tough to deal with.
Is that a pun because of the Jungle Panther here? Or is it just the Panther, excuse me.
And Panther creature type is one of the rare cases where Fiery War Axe actually does something against Druid, so that's good for the Warrior here. But yeah, he just slams Spectral Knight for sure.
Right. He just used one of his charges for the Fiery War Axe, so there's actually no way to deal with this Spectral Knight effectively.
Yeah, like
without
best
just
case
tossing
scenario
cards.
for the Warrior, the best case scenario is you take 12. And he can't get better than that. He's hoping to take 12 from Spectral Knight. That's
Or,
how,
yeah, I guess, unless Spectral Knight also ends up trading into things. Or if he can draw Sludge Belcher in the next card.
I would attack the Knight here with the weapon, because there's a good chance he draw Dustbite.
Yeah. Otherwise, if you draw another weapon, you're going to be taking 4 extra damage here, right?
Yeah, he's going to opt not to do this. This is the hope I draw a magical card to deal with this 4-6 strategy, which doesn't usually pan out just because, like I said, there's so few cards that can interact with that well.
Right.
But here's why Acolyte's so good. Boom.
Gained you 4 life.
Yeah, shield block. That's what he played. Dealt the damage to Spectral Knight. He's not going to play the Panther because the War Axe being in play.
And you know what? He got the Sludge Belcher, which is pretty effective now.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely a card he needed to see. So, I guess you coin it out. All the other options here aren't great.
And if he can tuck that Sludge Belcher behind an Armor Smith, he can start gaining back some traction on the board here.
Definitely. Alright, Wild Growth. That could be the play. I think we're just going to see Lotheb, though. If you Wild Growth, this is the turn to do it.
Right, so that way next turn you'll have 7 mana for the Ancient of Lore. But Lotheb fits the mana curve a little bit better.
Ooh. Sylvanas is very good. Definitely one of the Warriors' best tools against Druid.
It's interesting because it feels like a lot of decks... Like, part of the reason why Druid is just so well-rounded, though, are cards like Healer Growth, because silences always go in and out of the meta. Like a lot of decks nowadays are starting to cut silences or put it back in, but Druid always has access to it. And yet it still does struggle with Sylvanas because of all those mid-range creatures that can't just sacrifice them to it.
Yeah, so Shadow made a bit of a mistake there. He could have 1 more armor, 1 less life instead.
Oh, you tossed on the armors, but too late.
He attacked with the weapon after attacking with the Belcher. But
Oh. Okay.
not a huge deal, though, either way.
Well, not a huge deal because there are 5 health minions and you'll have access to it. It would have been a big deal if there was Seer Slam couldn't reach it.
Yeah. So Black Knight comes down. I like just using it there. You want the 4/5 in play. Warrior's really only gonna have Sludge Belcher as a target. So I think you just play the Sylvanas this turn. Okay, he's gonna go with the more defensive play and clear the board. This is okay. This is probably better actually, because in all honesty, it's very tough to find good uses for your executes and shield slams. Shield slam especially, like, just use it when you have the armor. It makes a lot of sense.
Put out pretty reasonable power on the board, similar to Sylvanas anyways. And, you know, not to mention on the very off chance, if your opponent had the combo with Innervate, you actually probably would have died there. So, it's like a safe approach instead of doing that. Gore Howl. Well,
Here we
don't
go.
mind if I do.
Yeah, that's a great draw. He has board control and Armor Smith's alive.
Yeah, you
That's
got
the
Alex
time
Straza and Gromash too.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a very realistic chance that Druid or like Warrior might flip this on the Druid immediately.
Yeah, I mean, it's already been flipped. This is very tough for Druid to come back from at this point. I think you have to, like, swipe the Armor Smith, or maybe you... Oh, no, he's going to go for a big Power of the Wild instead.
I'm ready to learn.
Okay, I guess. That's going to give you access to 10 mana next turn.
Okay, well, puts out some pretty strong power on the board, but Warriors in a pretty comfortable spot here. I mean, I already thought Sylvanas would have been an okay play, but Shield Maiden's also excellent draw, considering the circumstances.
Yeah, you can go with whatever you want here. I might even play Grommash.
Yeah, you think so? Because if he uses BGH, I guess how does he deal with the Alex Straza?
I'm a fan of just using mana efficiently. So to not spend 2 of it armoring here has some value. Looks like he's not going to go with the Grommash though. He's going to go with Execute, kill some stuff off. Just really doing what he can to keep his life total high. Surprised he used the Execute there instead of just attacking the Violet Teacher. But likely not a huge deal.
Not when you're at this much health. He's almost at 30. He's got 29 right now. And Pharo, he picks up his second Force of Nature. And that's not going to do anything here. He's going to fish for an answer with Wild Growth. Realistically, though, what can he pick up? Because to clear this board, he has to dedicate the rest of his turn.
Ooh.
Ooh. I wasn't considering that card.
No, me neither. Wrath isn't bad either. Lets you kill off Armorsmith without taking the damage. Gets you a card closer to Big Game Hunter. Okay, Druid might have a shot. Needs Big Game Hunter though. That's the most important card to find at this point. Because Warrior is just about to start dropping a lot of big minions that you need to be able to deal with. This is probably Alexstrasza O'Clock.
Was there any other thing to do here? Considering that you're at 30 health and there's just very, very few combinations of cards that you'd lose to.
Alright, Savage Roar. So it's 21 damage that the Druid has access to, but we'll see if he uses a defensive combo here to clear, or he just goes with...
I feel like he's forced to, almost. He has another Force of Nature, so that's good. Some people, they at times opt for 1 Force of Nature but 2 Savage Roars, but he does have the full set of 2. Well, here's a problem. If he uses the full combo, he can't even efficiently use that 12 damage because there's 13 health between the minions.
I think you actually swipe Keeper Hero Power. Or is that, maybe that's weak.
Swipe, Keeper, and Hero Power. Does that clear everything?
Yeah. Swipe the Maiden. Attack the Alex. This is better though. I don't know if I would have Savage Roared. You could like force a nature defensively there and Keeper, I think. Clear the board. 6 into the Alex and then 2 into Keeper.
Oh, so painful you couldn't keep Harrison Jones. Well, it's a free board. And honestly, an opportunity just to win the game.
Oh yeah, that was the best. Well, besides Taskmaster, that was the best possible draw.
Right. Or a Whirlwind. Or Shield Slam.
Oh yeah, he had a bit of armor.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Well, it doesn't really matter because there's no life gain. There's no way to be defensive whatsoever. In fact, he's just dead. Period. There's no way to stop this Grommash from coming in. So the series is going to stay alive. And we're going to go to the blind pick stage with an advantage for Pharo, 2-1. And this is where the game starts to evolve a little bit in terms of the metagame between these two players. What deck are they going to choose, in your opinion, Andre, seeing everything?
Well. Warlock. is my bad. From Shadow. And probably Warrior from I don't know, honestly. You kind of have to look at lineups and just... That's like stage 1 of thinking is picking the deck that has the fewest bad matchups. Stage 2 is like trying to counter that deck because you predict them picking it. It's really tough to say what exactly is going through the players' minds, what they want to go with. Yeah, I'm a fan of Warlock always, so I'd probably go with that.
Oh yeah, I think Handlock's pretty reasonable against the lineup, although Handlock in the very beginning is like if you know your opponent has the access to that warrior specifically. Were my comments that offensive to you right now? All right, well, I always know talking about handlock gets you emotional and choked up. Okay. Can someone? I think I have some water here, bud. Here you go. Rip Raidnad, 1992 to 2015. It's gonna be a warrior versus warrior mirror match. No handlock. And looks like I'm gonna have to solo cast this until Raynad's gonna be able to clear his throat from any phlegm or mucus that's inside of it. This is what happens, Raynad. This is what happens when you hang out with Twitch chat too long. No worries, man. You gonna make it? Can we do this?
Alright. Yeah. Let's power through it.
Alright. Alright, we got Warrior vs. Warrior coming up between Pharo versus Shadow. And the winner of this moves on to the semifinals. Now keep in mind, guys, that this week we're changing it up a little bit. It's not double elimination. We felt like that was just too unlike the actual Open. The Open was single elimination all the way to the top 4, and then all of a sudden became double elimination. Didn't really make much sense. So we're just keeping a single elimination all the way through. So if you lose here, you're out. There's not like the previous weeks where we saw some players lose, go through the lower bracket, and then make it to the next day. So for Shadow, he's on an elimination match, and he's going to need this warrior to win. But it's going to be up against a very anti-control warrior that Pharo has with Harrison Jones, with Big Game Hunter, and a lot of other greedy cards.
Yeah. Got to give the edge to Pharo here, I'd say. You were seeing a warrior deck with double whirlwind again. Oh man, this is brutal.
Yeah,
double whirlwind against a
yeah
deck with Iron Juggernaut, just more high end. The greedier deck is almost always favored in control mirrors.
It is true, and I mean honestly, having Harrison Jones keeping it from the start is very effective. But if you know that you're going to try to go into the long term against control, you know, having cards like Execute would actually be okay too. He opts to throw it out because I think you want to get those early game starts. You want to have weapons. Fiery War Axe is really effective. Acolyte's also really good too. Anything so that way you can get the card advantage is a really big lead in this matchup for sure. So taking a look at the hands as Sick Ned is right now trying to get some tissues and water. Shadow looks like he has all of his heavier minions, which is not exactly what you want. Armoring up all the way to turn 5 doesn't feel ideal whatsoever, especially if your opponent can take advantage of a board and you don't have a response to it. You don't have any removals through your weapons. But at the same time, Pharo doesn't have anything much better either. Both these guys' hands are pretty slow on. But that's what this matchup's about anyways. It's not really a sprint. You're not trying to finish your opponent off very quickly sometimes.
Yeah, most of the time we see it go down to fatigue, but every once in a while it is a bit of a stomp. Somebody gets a very good curve and just kind of holds board control.
Right.
Yeah, armoring up every turn has a lot more value than it might seem like it, honestly. Every bit of armor matters so much, whereas the first 15 points of life kind of don't, just because of Alexstrasza. So we'll see the first play here, I think.
It's a coin Sludge Belcher.
Yeah, definitely. And you have the follow-up Harrison, which usually has a target. I guess in this case it probably won't.
Well, I mean, there's no weapons in sight whatsoever from either of these players. And even if he did have a weapon, turn 5, your opponent might just respond with the same exact thing you have too with the Sludge Belcher. Your hand is starting to get pretty stacked though. I think that's 9 cards at the moment. Yeah, not real much to think about here.
Yeah, gotta play it. This is great. A lot of the times that Sludge Belcher comes out in the mirror, it's being threatened by a Death Bite on 1 charge. And in a case where you can just play it and get full value without just dying to that card, that's very important actually.
Well, on both ends here, because it seems like Shadow has no better play than to play his own Sludge Belcher here.
Yeah, we're gonna see Belchers stare at each other. Definitely happens from time to time. Oh, that's actually a decent pickup here.
Yeah, the Death Spite. I mean, it's really good at killing some of these mid-range minions. The Shield Maiden next turn.
Would you throw that down, or you could Taskmaster, you could Shield
True.
Slam, a lot of choices.
Taskmaster does the same thing as the Death Spite, but it doesn't set you up as good as it is for the next turn, because it does put your Sludge Belcher at 1 HP, so it can get picked off by cool Taskmaster in response. So, not that big of a fan.
Yeah, or the Slime.
Yeah, that's true. Of course, the Slime. Forget about that all the time. Ah.
Okay, he's gonna go with this. I wouldn't have minded to see
the
a Whirlwind.
Yeah, I thought the Whirlwind would have come out a little bit sooner. But,
So, yeah, it's an unnecessary point of damage on the Taskmaster here. It does actually matter.
right, because the Death Spite here
Mhm.
ends up being able to clean it up pretty easily.
I think you, well, you might just save the Death Bite charge, trade off the Slime. Might be the better way to go.
Well, if he's tacking the face, looks like he's going to just use a Death Spite right here. I mean, that's pretty much what Shadow wanted to. He didn't want the Death Spite to attack into any of his minions like Shield Maiden. But he does lose the board,
Mm-hmm. Alright,
if only for a second, as he just draws Shield Slam. So he has the Shield Maiden Shield Slam combo.
yeah, that's pretty much every removal spell in hand here for Shadow. I think you do go with the Maiden Shield Slam. It's just too clean not to do.
Is there any cardinal rules to this matchup at all that's developed? Like, for example, in Shaman Mirror matches, people often say you don't want to be the first one to toss out Lightning Storm because it feels like, assuming both of you have the copies, you'd end up getting the final say. Your opponent does. Is there anything similar to that in Warrior Mirrors?
Mostly in the early turns. Don't play Armor Smith if you don't have the Fiery War Axe. Otherwise, they can coin Acolyte and then draw a card off you. But honestly, it's a very intricate matchup. It's every draw is very different with it. Mostly just try to get the best value as you can out of your cards. I like to be very aggressive with removal. I think it's generally the right way to use your executes, your shield slams. If you have a good target, just play them.
Well, shield slamming the empty board Sylvanas is very effective too.
Yeah, definitely. That's a not great value for Pharo. Sylvanas is a very important card in this matchup, and you know, losing it to one of those removal spells is definitely great for Shadow. So.
Alright, well, Pharo picks up Fiery War Axe.
I mean, I like just slamming Ragnaros here. Get all the armor gone.
Yeah, I guess so. Your opponent just used 2 shield slams. You're going to remove the... So armor's not really the factor here. Just going to shred the rest. Shadow does have ways to deal with it with Execute. And then has his own Ragnaros. And I think we start the Ragnaros wars here. Does his opponent have a way to deal with it too with the Cruel Taskmaster and Execute? And at the end of the day, seems like Pharo will be able to seize back the board. But one thing that is interesting... Oh. Wow, Big Game Hunter. So you use Big Game Hunter? I think it's better to keep Execute for the flexibility since you have the Taskmaster. Not to mention that you put out a stronger minion on the board.
GH. Great target. Might as well get it down. Alright, well, he's going to save the mana, or he's going to choose to just hold on to the War Axe.
Right.
Sometimes you just throw it out there.
I guess he's afraid of the Harrison Jones climbing up too much in the card count here.
Now, like, honestly, if you have a Gorehowl in your deck, you want to bait out the Harrison Jones and get it used on a normal weapon. But if you're only playing the 4 weapons, then...
I think Pharaoh's not the one playing Gorehowl, though. I think Shadow's the one playing the Gorehowl.
Okay, they might both have it too, we're not sure.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, very clean kill though. And Black Knight's fantastic in the mirror. A lot of people think, you know, the Warrior doesn't really have that many taunts, just the 2 Belchers, but in a Warrior mirror, the game's gonna go on so long that interaction will always come up. That's usually more value than like a Cairn even. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, the 4-5 body is pretty intimidating, but the 5 damage battle cry is pretty insane. Shadow is in a pretty awkward spot here. Like, it's not warranted enough that he wants to use removal, and at the same time, his minions like Alex Strauss would just get destroyed so easily.
yeah,
For
definitely.
cards that are already 2 for 1.
Yeah, all your plays here are pretty awkward though. I think you just have to play Alex.
Brawl. This could go so disastrously.
There's no good outcome here, even if the
Yeah, he played a 5 mana 1 damage spell. He just killed Big Game Hunter and did 1 damage to it.
should cut that for Inner Rage.
Oh man, it's strictly worse than Inner Rage. Well, at least when you do it in that scenario. And of course, we've all been there before, where Brawl gets nothing out of your opponent. This
Once
just
or
looks like
twice.
it's a disaster for Shadow. Oh man.
Yeah, game all of a sudden becomes pretty tough to lose for Pharo here.
Yeah.
Just extremely far ahead.
Well, I think this is also a good example of card advantage through swinging cards like Big Game Hunter, Black Knight, Harrison Jones. They've all just collected 1 extra card each time. And just look, I mean, that just improves your hand quality so much. You're able to have a lot of options. Not to mention that you get your threats earlier. That Dr. Boom for the next turn,
Wow.
pretty important.
He's even throwing out Cruel Taskmaster despite having Grommash in hand.
Yeah.
That's
Going
surprising.
Full aggro.
Like to see an attack there.
Yeah.
Honestly, War Axe past the first couple turns doesn't usually have too much use. You're usually just knocking armor away with it. But, or killing Slime, for example, it's one of the better targets.
Sure. Acolytes.
Okay, pretty clean execute Dr. Boom, I think. I mean, you've already seen the Brawl, you can't be too scared to just...
Load up the board.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me. You haven't seen a Big Game Hunter value your opponent, but that's still okay because those boom bots, they still do some damage. Pretty significant.
Alright, well. It's gonna put Shadow down to 18, I expect.
Well, he didn't attack last turn, but it makes sense this turn because he's starting to get closer to lethal and he needs to equip as much damage next turn with the Fire War Axe. So, Grommash and Whirlwind to try to absorb as much Boombot damage.
Yeah, I guess. You gotta make that defensive play.
That's basically giving away your any ability to win anyways. I don't see a way for Shadow to get out of this
Okay,
very poor scenario.
let's see, 19. Yeah, I was gonna say you Taskmaster, Grommash, and go face, and then draw Gorehowl, but that's still 2 damage short because of the armor.
Oh, yikes. Because, yeah, your opponent has 19 now, so he gets 7 remaining. If he just armors up, you're in trouble.
Alright, Grommash, Taskmaster, draw Pyroblast. That's the play.
Draw Antonidas into Antonidas Whirlwind Fireball. What if he just drew Deathwing every single turn from this point on?
You probably win. I don't think there's a way to lose.
Alright, well, these boom bots. I was really hoping they would hit
Merciless.
the Grommash for 8 damage. That would have been so hilarious.
Boombot RNG is not kind.
Wait, is there still Ragnaros? No, that Ragnaros was BGH'd. Well, that's going to do it for the series here. Pharo's going to take a 3-1 and advance to the semifinals, get 1 round closer, qualifying for Saturday's event. And well played to Pharo, but fortunately Shadow is going to have to sit this one out and try again next week, as this is the first time we'll see him, but maybe we'll see him again next week. Some of these guys, they try to qualify again, they do it.
Yeah, good for him for getting this far, though. Hopefully it goes better next week.
All right. Well, I mean, let's take a look at the bracket in just a second here to see what's coming up here. After this series, we have Ping Ping Ho versus Roger. This is two Taiwanese players facing off, so we'll see how their metagame's developing. Then we have Reyes versus Phone Tap, and then followed by Cole MTG versus Ant, who finished top 16 at BlizzCon qualifiers. That's all happening in just a few minutes. But before we go on, we also want to thank the people that make this broadcast possible over at Newegg. You can check out all their cool products and promotions of Cooler Master, Crucial, and Western Digital products. Also, shout out to Plantronics, who's been joining us aboard this week for Season 1. We're going to take a few minutes, get Andre some CPR, water, tea, whatever it's going to take.
Yep.
Call 911. When we come back, more Legendary Series Open Finals. Stay tuned, guys.